Good morning, Buffalo. You're tuned into Eastside Parkway's Coalition Radio Hour, where we celebrate, protect, and reimagine the green spaces that connect our neighborhoods and improve our quality of life. I'm your host, India Walton. Today, my colleague and dear friend Candace is vacationing and enjoying herself, but I'm joined here with Bradley Wells and Miss Betty Jean Grant this morning. And we're going to talk about green space and climate. Joining me today also is someone who knows this work inside and out, Darren Cotton. Darren is a community planner, a communications designer, and a tool librarian. Darren has over a decade of experience pioneering and sharing the circular economies in Western New York as a founder and current executive director of the Tool Library, one of my favorite places in Buffalo as a new homeowner. I rely heavily on the Tool Library for just about anything I need to fix up on my Hamlin Park treasure. But Darren has spent the last 15 years working on exploring alternative models of community development in Buffalo with the focus on green space development and urban reforestation, commercial corridor revitalization, waste reduction, and community capacity building. Welcome to the show, Darren. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. There's nowhere I'd rather be on a Saturday than here with you.
I can think of a few places. No, but this show is vitally important. We seek to educate, to connect, and to allow folks to really be vested and have a stake in what's happening in our community. So I'm happy that you're here with us today. Let's start with the basics. When we talk about green space, and where I know you from before the Tool Library was Retree University, which I felt like was a really powerful grassroots effort where you mapped out the tree cover in University District and not only complained about it, but decided to get active and, get with some folks and do something about it. So tell me about what you notice about green space on the east side and University and other parts of the east side of Buffalo.
Yeah, I think it's hard not to notice when you're driving down specific streets and you see absolutely no tree coverage and what that means, especially on like a super hot summer day, what that experience is like, and really thinking about, especially from the perspective of the Tool Library, like we have all of these tools. How can we as community members take an active role in trying to address that disparity of tree coverage and trying to restore our tree canopy and all the innumerable benefits that, come with trees in our neighborhoods?
Yeah, it's for folks who may live west of Main Street who aren't really familiar with what we're talking about. And even people who live east of Main Street who may not be aware of what we mean by the difference in tree cover in the city, I implore you to just take a stroll down a street that goes from east to west, right? Like Ferry, right? If you walk from East Ferry to West Ferry, almost immediately when you cross over Main Street, you'll notice not only a difference in the tree cover, but in the temperature. There are studies out that talk about the difference in temperature in neighborhoods that have established tree lines and tree cover as opposed to those who do not. So yeah, on the east side in the summer, it's several degrees hotter on the east side. And I just saw a story come out, I think on Channel 4, that was talking about mortality rates and how Black people are dying at higher rates in extreme weather events just due to the change in temperature. So let's talk a little bit more about Retree, the district. So how many trees would you estimate that you were able to successfully plant in University District?
Sure. So our goal initially was 1,000 trees over 2 years, and we met that goal. But we just kept planting because we kind of realized, okay, the trees are great, but they are sort of a means to an end of. Especially in university, you kind of have this friction between student renters, long-term residents. So what we saw with those big planting days was really an opportunity for people to come together around this very singular task of planting trees, but then also realizing like, oh, hey, I'm actually your neighbor. And are there other things that we can work together on, whether it's as simple as community cleanup or, reimagining a vacant lot as a community garden? I think providing more opportunities to bring so many different people together from different walks of life all around something that ultimately is a long-term investment in their neighborhood. I think that was really powerful. And so now, on an annual basis, we continue to do tree plantings, and then we continue to do follow-up stewardship and understanding that, it doesn't end with the last shovel, it really is this idea of you are now in relationship with these trees, with these beings that you have planted, and that's a really powerful thing. And I mean, even the first tree that we ever planted with Retreat the District was in front of a house that I rented on Minnesota Avenue, and that was in 2014. And I drive past that house and that tree all the time to check up on the tree, and it's like an actual huge shade producing tree now. And so to see that evolution, I think, and to be part of that, a decade on, to see something that you planted, and to have that relationship is really powerful.
That's such a beautiful story. So the tree's doing okay.
It is. It's thriving.
Great. And you said something to me in the lobby that I want you to repeat for our listeners, because the best time to plant a tree is
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
But yeah, the second best time is now.
Yeah, and I mean, this is of course the Eastside Parkways Coalition Radio Hour, and we're advocating for a full restoration of Humboldt Parkway. And one of the things that are of concern to people is the tree cover along that parkway and in that neighborhood. I'm very fortunate to be a homeowner in Hamlin Park, which is a neighborhood that is still intact, right, for lack of a better word, right? And like I said, I rely heavily on the tool library for a lot of my needs as a homeowner, for minor repairs and even things that I wouldn't think of, like who wants to actually buy a rototiller. So can you talk a little bit about the tool library, how it came to be, and how folks can get involved? Because something that started out as small, right now it's really available to folks citywide who want to be able to have access to this wonderful resource in our community.
Yeah, for sure. So Tool Library really developed out of my experience as a grad student at UB, living off campus, renting from a not so fantastic landlord. So I'm assuming a lot of people in similar situations where you just can't get them to do anything. And so wanting to be able to improve the property where I lived, but not having the resources to go out to, a big box store and drop $300 on a tool. And so really trying to provide that community-based resource, and really thinking about that not everyone needs to own one of everything. There's this absurd statistic out there that the average drill is used 13 minutes over its entire life. And yet we're all still going out to Home Depot to buy a drill to put that one shelf or curtain rod up. And it's like, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And so making those things available so that that same drill can be used by thousands of different people across thousands of different projects. I think just how transformative that can be, just thinking about one singular drill. And we have an inventory of about 5,000 items, so ranging anywhere from basic hand tools, drills, as you mentioned, rototillers, so tons of lawn and garden stuff. I think just giving people the tools and the resources and the agency that they need to shape their built environment, I think, is really powerful. So on the micro scale, like your home, fixing up your home, to the neighborhood and community level of, let's transform this vacant lot or let's plant trees. Really, we want to be the infrastructure for people to turn their ideas into action.
Turning ideas into action. I love that. So how much is a basic membership to the tool library?
Sure. So membership starts as low as $30 a year. That gets you access to 5 tools at a time. You've got a week to use them, but we also have tool library scholarships. So anyone that wants a membership, so whether you're an individual, a block club, an organization that just doesn't have the budget at that time, membership is open to anyone. So please reach out, stop in. We're right on Main Street, 2626 Main Street, across from the Amherst Metro Station. We want everyone and anyone to be a tool library member.
Yeah, I have a wheelbarrow membership. So that also means that, like, when it's time to do the neighborhood cleanup, I can rent like 50 little grabbers to go pick up trash with. So Just a plug for the Tool Library, and you're doing such great work. So if anyone is listening in and you're interested, go stop by the Tool Library. Is right over there near Vernon Triangle, Amherst Main Street area. You kind of can't miss it. Listeners, you're here with the Eastside Parkways Coalition Radio Hour. My name is India. I'm your host. Give us a call at 837-1112. Tell us your stories about living on the Parkway. Tell us your hopes, dreams, your vision for the future of our Parkway, and tell us about the importance of tree cover, of green space. There's studies out right now that are talking about the impacts of access to green space on mental health, and we know that in the recent years, especially post-pandemic, there's been an emphasis on Black mental health for all of us, really. But the impact that green space has on your mental health is a positive one. The impact on air quality is a positive one. You really can't say many negative things about planting a tree. So, we're talking with Darren Cotton of the Tool Library and of Retree University. What can you talk about some of the challenges that you experienced when trying to plant trees in University District? I was talking to somebody about planting trees, and they were like, "Oh yeah, well it's gonna break up the concrete in front of my house, and I'm gonna be responsible for it." And I'm like, "Yeah, in like 80 years." But so what were some of the challenges that you faced when running this campaign to Retree University District?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we learned is that the demand really has to come from every single resident, right? Like, it has to come from the neighborhood, from the community. I think, I was a recent college grad, very idealistic, and just thinking, oh yeah, everyone wants trees. Like, trees are a good thing. Let's just go plant some trees. And there's got to be community buy-in. Because, as I said, like, planting is only half the battle. It really is those first 2 or 3 years that are really super important for the survivorship of trees. I mean, we've done survivorship reports. We've seen probably about a 50% survivorship rate, and that just has to do with, again, hotter and drier summers. Like, this is probably the coolest summer that we'll ever experience in our lives, which is really startling, but that there has to be that long-term stewardship and that there has to be buy-in from the community. So you can't start with just planting the trees. There has to be working with block clubs. There has to be trainings, workshops, opportunities for people to learn more about, what are the benefits of trees, and what are some of the ways that we can mitigate those, potential negative impacts. So like things on, plumbing, sidewalks, that sort of thing. And again, I think about, does the Tool Library have a role to play there, where it's like, well, if we're worried about your sewer, you can come and grab, a drain auger, clear out your sewer lines once a year, and then have a big, beautiful tree that is shading your neighborhood and your property.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the human brain is just strange in how there's something that I say is like, people have a problem for every solution, right? When you're like, oh, people are dying because it's too hot and climate change is going to be our ultimate demise, and folks come back to you with like, oh, the roots are going to grow into my sewer in 50 years. It's just like, where have our priorities as a people gone to? And I hate to be this person. You know what? They should have never gave me a microphone. I'm sorry. Because capitalism is the issue, really. It's like we can't afford to do the right thing, right? We can't do the right thing because it's going to cost us more money. And I just feel like that argument, it's not an argument. So yes, plant the tree, and in 60 years, when your grandchildren or great-grandchildren have a problem with the sewer, they can go to the Tool Library and rent an auger.
Well, and hopefully in 60 years, every neighborhood will have its own Tool Library, and we'll all have like a federated network of neighborhoods that are pouring and repairing their own sidewalks and have control over, Public Works, and that's the dream, at least.
That is the dream. Give us a call, 716-837-1112. Let us know what your vision is for the Parkway or for the future of Toole Libraries. And right now I'm talking to the block club leaders. If you're listening in, get your block club a membership to the Toole Library. It's going to make your community cleanup so much smoother and easier if you can get those little grabbers. Actually, so the first time I got a Toole Library membership, it was a prize. I won it in the Earth Day cleanup from Trash Mob, because my group collected more trash than any other group in the city. So yes, that was fun. So are there any current opportunities to get involved, Darren, with the Toole Library or with planting trees, or what do you suggest people do to activate themselves?
Yeah, for sure. So every fall and every spring, the Toole Library comes out with a calendar of service days. So we do have some opportunities coming up. On September 27th, we'll be over at Tiff Nature Preserve. They've been doing some really incredible work over there, ecological restoration. We're going to be planting trees with them. On October 11th, we'll be back to William L. Gator Parkway. So we've planted about 100 new trees along the walking and bike path on the Parkway in conjunction with the Norfolk Avenue Block Club #1. And now it really is just like stewardship mode. So how do we make sure that these trees survive? And so we try to come back every year, and we pair that with a community cleanup. And I'm just so grateful for people like Angie, who is the president of the Block Club, who, makes what we do at the Toole Library worthwhile, because this is what our tools were meant to do, right? They were meant to be put to work on these projects out in the community. So those are two upcoming events through the Toole Library. If you're interested in getting trees in your own neighborhood, Retree Western New York is actively taking tree requests through September 10th. So you're going to want to visit them online at retreewesternnewyork.org. They're also hosting a free tree planting workshop on October 25th from 9 to noon. That will be right at Forest Lawn. So if you've never planted a tree before, super fun, super easy. Come and learn. They'll be distributing trees on October 30th, and then the goal is to get those trees in the ground on November 1st.
Nice. Forest Lawn is another Buffalo treasure. I think that's like just completely underrated. I live close to there, and I enjoy taking very serene morning walks in the cemetery, Brad.
Cemeteries were the original public park.
And Forest Lawn is beautiful, and there are so many interesting stories there and legacies of people there, including one of my heroes, Shirley Chisholm. So, Brad, let's talk a little bit about trees and the plan for what is Humboldt Parkway, but the plan to restore the Kensington Expressway. What does this mean for trees and tree cover in the neighborhoods surrounding the Kensington Expressway? What could this mean if we were to do this the right way and have a full restoration?
Well, the issue is tremendously germane, because one of the problems with, we still trying to get over the hangover of the tunnel here. One of the problems with the tunnel that's, almost incomprehensible to me is that if you build a tunnel and you plant trees in 3 foot of soil, those trees are guaranteed to be cut down sometime in the next 30 to 100 years in order to replace the roof, because the tunnel's actually, it's a building. It's got, some kind of synthetic roof, drainage mats on top of it. Shouldn't that be a kill factor for that project? Like, that would be the last thing you'd want to do, right? Is to go and plant all these trees and have all these aspirations, but it's really just a replica parkway. Mm-hmm. And then you're guaranteeing that people are gonna relive that, that famous picture from March 3rd of 1960 with all the stumps. Whereas the full restoration of the parkway, you would have trees that could grow to be 200-300 years old. and the canopies grow and the property values around it grow. Speaking of capitalism.
Yeah, ideally, that's what I want. It also brings pause for me thinking about the maintenance of our local infrastructure as it exists, right? And to say that we're going to have another $5 million in annual maintenance to maintain the cap, cover, whatever you want to call it, when you could just have a parkway that just needs a plow like any other city street, is a little bit concerning.
I don't want to jump off that, though. I kind of rambled there. I mean, really, stop for a second and think about it. Those trees that are going to be planted, they got to be cut down. Why would you do that? And I was wondering on the way down here about what word is it that describes this project, this proposed tunnel where you got to cut down the trees guaranteed and sometime in the next 30 to 100 years. I think the word's absurd. I think that's an absurd concept that should be a kill factor for that project, or at least that idea to do that should be, the very last thing you would do in order to fix those retaining walls. I moved to Buffalo in 1989 and watched the trees. There was a retreeing going on all throughout the west side. Mm-hmm. It's magnificent now.
Yeah.
You plant now, and 35 years from now, you're going to have a magnificent parkway on the east side.
Yeah, I moved to Buffalo in 1982. I didn't choose this place. It kind of chose me. But I don't think that I noticed that there were no trees in my neighborhood until I was an adult. And I started riding bikes. And it was just, it's unbearably hot in the summer trying to ride on the east side. And, my natural instinct was to just like head toward the water, right, where there was a breeze. But one thing that I began to notice over time, especially, as I became an organizer and an activist, and I was doing affordable housing development in the Fruit Belt, and, funders would come into town and they would want a tour of the city. And, as an executive director, you always got to have like a shtick, mm-hmm. right? Like there has to be a point that you make to make them want to give you money. And what I would do is I would take them from the Fruit Belt. We would walk across Michigan even across Michigan, right? You notice a difference in the green space. But then I would take them across Main Street, and I would ask them if they felt any difference. And most of them said, well, it's greener. There's trees. It's cooler, because it is. And I think that when we look at this project, it's not only about dollars and cents. It's not about fear of funding being pulled away. It's not about who's been in this the longest. It's about a fundamental principle of justice and undoing harm and correcting the wrongs of the past. And we're in a moment in time that this can be done. This is probably our greatest opportunity in a generation to finally, Buffalo, do something right. The opening game, the season opener is next week. I'm ready to sell a kidney to go see my boys out in Orchard Park. And besides that stadium, this is the greatest opportunity we have in our lifetime to finally do something right. And I'm a Buffalo girl through and through. I will continue to watch every single Bills game, even though we've lost 4 Super Bowls. I believe in us. And this is our time. This is our year. We're going to win the Super Bowl. We're going to fully restore Humboldt Parkway. And we're going to do it right this time. And we're going to take a short break to shout out our station, WUFO Power 96.5. Welcome back. I'm here with Darren Cotton of the Tool Library and Retree University. Miss Betty Jean Grant is here on our Facebook Live and here with Brad Wells, professor at the University at Buffalo, an institution of sorts.
Of sorts. It's substantial. I wanted to pick up on what you were saying about moving across from the west side to the east side. When we first started getting into this, I had my students study the DOT's proposal for in September of 2023. And the first class, what we did was we went over to Bidwell Parkway, bought a cup of tea at Cafe Aroma, hung out there, and then when you come across we went over to Northland Avenue to the Boys and Girls Club, and we met Terry Robinson, who was on last week, being amazing and encyclopedic in his knowledge, and we walked over the pedestrian overpass, and I would just recommend that everybody take a friend and go do that. You get over to the 33, and one of the most amazing things, besides there's no trees, is it's so loud you can't even hear yourself think. You can't have a conversation. So this kind of going back and forth is tremendously impactful, and this is what the East Side deserves too.
It is, and a lot of my opinion on this is based around that. Is give us our just due. And I love to spend time in Delaware Park. I love the homes on Bidwell and Chapin and Lincoln. And as a younger person, I always imagined myself that when I made it, right, whatever that meant, I think that a lot of people who come from places the place where I came from. I grew up on Monroe Street in William, down the way, 31 Stand Up, Sperry Park. Today is Unity Day. I hope to see y'all at the park later. But anyway, a lot of people that grew up in my neighborhood that come from where I come from, when you made it, whatever that means to you, when you graduated college, when you got the job of your dreams, you got out of here, right? We have so many expats who are in Charlotte, Atlanta. I'm talking about black folks who we talking about the Buffalo brain drain. When people find success, they take it and they take that brilliance and that investment somewhere else. But for me, I saw my making it meaning that I lived on a Lincoln Parkway. I lived on a Chapin Parkway. I lived on one of these beautiful tree-lined streets that was close to a park, where I could enjoy the nature and the sunshine. But now what I'm seeing, right, that I have a home in Hamlin Park is that I want my neighbors and I want my children and my grandchildren to enjoy that in the place where we live right now. I said I live close to Forest Lawn, right? That's the closest thing I can get to a parkway right now. But I enjoy going there and being in nature and with the trees and being able to walk and feel that peace and serenity. And I imagine in my mind and heart what it would look like to have Humboldt Parkway fully restored, because I can't get to my house unless I go down Humboldt. My home is not in was the prescribed project area, which that's a tragedy in and of itself as well, because it excludes so many people who are actually impacted by this highway, and the project area leaves us out. It leaves out a big chunk of Hamlin Park. It leaves out the Fruit Belt and further down toward downtown. But that's as an aside. Why do we feel like we always have to settle for what's offered? And I'm trying to think of who I was speaking with. Bill. I don't know Bill's last name. Bill was an engineer for the city of Tonawanda. And I spent some time with Bill on Thursday, and he was talking about the first meeting of the DOT in 2009. And he said they decided 15 years ago that this was the project they were pursuing. I'm sorry, Bill, if I'm he retired now, so I think he's probably not worried about it. But Bill said that to me. So now here we are. It's 2025. We know what we know. We've done what we, oh, you know why? Because he was saying that somebody who was involved with their organization wrote the amicus brief that gave Eastside Parkways Coalition the, whatever the legal term is, the legal standing to sue the Department of Transportation.
No way, Bill. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been thinking that we're the only ones talking about that. We foiled the early advisory committee meeting minutes from 2009. Someone in our group, Morgan Baker, did that. Thank you very much, Morgan. It was a brilliant move. And Craig Mosrell, the assistant regional design engineer, told the community in 2009 at meeting number 3 that the expressway would remain 3 lanes in each direction.
Mm-hmm.
That was echoed by Daryl Kaminsky, who was a senior engineer at that same meeting.
Where's he at now?
Who?
Where's Daryl Kaminsky?
No.
Do you know where he works?
Well, no, I don't exactly, but someone told me that he works at Labella now.
Oh, and who's Labella?
Labella's the engineering company that's designing the tunnel.
Oh, okay. We're here to educate. We want people to know what's going on here. I mean, like, it's not lost on me. We all come from, either come from or have been here long enough to know how things work in this place. And there's always a connection. They say it's not about what you know, but it's about who you know. But what you know, also has an impact on who you know. And you should know who these people are, what their histories are. And these are the folks who've been empowered to make decisions on your behalf. So, what I want to talk about now is decision making, right? We're going into this EIS process. And the reason why I've really stopped even focusing on the detrimental impacts of the tunnel, right? Because according to you, Brad, we have a fresh start. We got a clean slate, right?
Brand new start.
Brand new start. So with this EIS process, we're just rejecting that altogether. I'm acting like it was never even an option because it wasn't for me. But let's talk a little bit about how folks can get involved in this EIS process and stop allowing people who don't live in the city of Buffalo, who don't live near the Kensington Expressway, who don't have any vested interest in this project besides what's going to line their pockets. How can people who really are on the ground every day and this is their life, is going to affect their property values, it's going to affect their quality of life, it's going to affect their health, how can these folks get involved in the EIS process?
We're actually doing research right now because, the EIS process is a very specific process. And honestly, going back to Labella, we're hoping that Labella comes forward, with some common sense and says, hey, the best project is probably filling it in. So that's from the professional point of view. As a person or a group in the city, especially if you live near to the expressway, you're required by state and federal law to be able to become a stakeholder. And your rights, if you go to the Green Amendment of New York State, everyone in the state is guaranteed the right to clean air and a healthy environment. We're doing our research now to find out what's the official process to get involved as a stakeholder. And by the way, we'll be going door to door in the project area on September 7th to educate people and to bring letters that they can send in, sample letters that they can send in to DOT requesting to be a stakeholder. We'll be meeting, this is September 7th, we'll be meeting at EMT I believe at noon, and then going from there.
Isn't September 7th game day?
Uh-oh.
Well, it's a night game, so I guess...
Is it a night game?
It is.
Good. So this is a pregame. You do your pregame getting the trees back on Humboldt Parkway, and then so we win that, and then we go win the opener against a daunting opponent.
Yeah. Listen, I ran an entire political campaign that was centered around when bills. You do not knock on doors on game days. That's not. You were gonna make way more enemies than friends by doing that. But
you want your trees back or not?
We do. We want the trees. So September 7th, we're going to be in your neighborhood knocking on your doors. Listeners, we want to hear from you. 837-1112. My throat is getting dry. It's hard to fill up an hour's worth of airtime, but I'm enjoying it. I'm learning a lot as always, and I'm fired up and ready to seize this opportunity. This is one of the greatest opportunities of our lifetime, and we have to make sure that it's done right. So, visit us, follow us on social media, Eastside Parkways Coalition on Instagram and Facebook, and visit our website, www.eastsideparkwayscoalition.com, and there you will find the form where you can become a stakeholder. Don't be a spectator. Be involved. Your opinions matter, and you are the expert on your life. You're the expert on your neighborhood, and we need your voice in this process. We have a brand new slate. Don't let anyone tell you any different. I use bad terms sometimes. I wanted to say the nail is not in the coffin, but what's a better way to say that? It's not a done deal. The ink hasn't dried. Let's put it that way. The ink hasn't dried. There's still opportunities for engagement and to be a part of this process. So, Darren, tell me a little bit more about your community engagement process. I also live in a mixed community where I'm near Canisius University, and there's sort of like transient residents, and then there's longtime homeowners, right, with Hamlin Park Taxpayer Association and some very strong block clubs in the neighborhood. How do you bridge the gap and bring people who otherwise wouldn't be canoodling? How do you bring them together?
Yeah, I think it starts with the idea of not having a project that's fully formed and letting the stakeholders who are in that community kind of inform what that ultimately looks like. And I think that was something that we, again, learned. It was always a learning process of there's actually a better way of doing this, where it's don't have some arbitrary goal or target area. Really listen to what you hear when you're going door to door and talking to your neighbors and helping that inform the planning process. And I think, again, my background is urban planning, and I think that's one of the best things that urban planners can do is just sit back and listen and understand that the solutions are there and they're being presented by the people that are living in the places where you are ideally planning for. So I think bringing people to the table, I think that is one area that is woefully under-resourced when it comes to tree plantings, is before any shovels hit the ground, how do we build the civic and the community infrastructure to make these successful plantings? And so that means working with block club leaders to train them, working with youth groups, providing opportunities for employment that, again, after the trees are planted, we need some sort of stewardship model where it's the trees are getting watered, they're being pruned, cared for. This is all workforce development opportunity, different programs that can be run out of community centers. There are so many things that we can build around the trees that is not just getting the trees in the ground. There's a whole ecosystem that you could build and make neighborhoods stronger for it.
That's really beautiful. It reminds me of, and you might remember this, Ms. Grant. Do you remember Keep Buffalo Neat?
Buffalo Meat?
Keep Buffalo Neat. It was a program that was ran through the CAO, and they employ young people. In the summer, they did landscaping, and in the winter, they did snow removal. And it was at a low cost to elderly and differently able residents of the city, but they employed this entire workforce. And unfortunately, it went away.
Right.
But I do think that what you're getting at is that these are opportunities not only for it's deeper than trees, right? It's about investments in communities, and we know that green space improves health, it improves mental health, it improves air quality, and it reduces crime. when people have a sense of belonging, they treat the place differently than they do if they feel like it's a hostile environment.
I just want to say something. I just rushed from Bidwell Parkway to come here to videotape this program, and I was there with the farmers market, and I talked to many of the residents who lived on Humboldt Park, not Humboldt Parkway, but Bidwell Parkway, and also in the general neighborhood. And I talked to them, and when I told them about our effort, they said, "Well, I hope you are supporting the restoration." I said, "Yeah, we're for the restoration." And there's a group called Eastside Parkway Coalition who are in full support of that. And they were as well. I talked to about 20 individuals. Not one say, "I don't want the expressway gone." They said, "Get rid of the expressway and restore the parkway." So we got a lot of support on the west side of Main Street for our initiative to restore the trees in Humboldt Parkway.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I met Daryl when he was planting the William Gator with the North Fork Block Club, planting the trees, and I'm glad you're doing that. But my question to you is, how are they being watered during the summer, especially our past summer, so they will have a chance of surviving?
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely an area that I think we really need to focus ideas, attention, resources on. Like for us, it was literally a handful of volunteers dragging hundreds of feet of hose from fire hydrant to fire hydrant, running into instances where you open a fire hydrant and then can't actually close it because that fire hydrant hadn't been used in 20 years. And then so you end up breaking it and have to call the water department, and you accidentally flood half of the parkway. But I mean, all of these things have solutions, right? If we have enough people, time, energy focusing on, how do we keep these things watered? So whether it is mobile watering tanks that are part of the Parks Department, or there is some third-party organization, I think we really need to be thinking long-term beyond just the planting. What does that stewardship landscape look like? I mean, a small-scale example for us, Minnesota Avenue Block Club has been planting trees for many, many years. They planted a bunch this past year. We have probably close to 100 gator bags, which are essentially slow-release watering bags at the tool library now, just from all our tree plantings. So they were able to come in, borrow about 20 of those. They put them on the trees. You fill them up once a week. They hold about 20 gallons of water, slowly release that over the course of a few days. And even like when we were able to water a tree once or twice over the course of the summer, that can mean the difference between that tree living and that tree dying. So small things, small investments like gator bags can have a huge impact, but thinking, longer term, significant resources being invested into how do we keep these trees alive. I think that has to be a solution that comes from all, both from the community standpoint all the way up to the city, nonprofit partners. There are solutions out there. We just have to work towards them.
Thank you.
Great. It's a matter of life and death. And speaking of partnerships, like how did these things work? And this is no dig on the city at all, but I do know for myself that I was alarmed when a bunch of trees got cut down in the fruit belt a few years ago, and I had been trying to contact a person in the city to figure out why and what was going to be done about it and when the trees were going to be replanted. And I found out that the Department of Urban Forestry in the city had like one individual working there to care for and take stock of the trees for the entire city of Buffalo. So how's that partnership with the city been for you? Have you found that they're interested in it or disinterested? Is there a particular champion in the city who's really concerned about this, or how's that been going?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the crazy thing was that the city went from having 0 foresters on staff to 1. So that was a huge, obviously a huge successful move in the right direction.
100% increase.
And I think, again, this is like vestiges of what did the city government look like in the 1950s, where a lot of these things were done in-house versus like the privatization of things where you bring in an outside contractor. And so, again, I think it is thinking about what those partnerships look like, but also advocating for the city and departments to have more resources to be able to tackle these things. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Like, everyone in this space needs more resources, and I think the more the city has community advocates advocating that they need more funding, the easier it becomes to deliver those services, to build those partnerships, and to make it easier to keep our trees alive and thriving.
Yes, more trees. We have a caller on the line. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yes, hello. And good show as always. I want to make a few comments, and if you could expound on them, if you will. I just want to make a notice of the no metro, that's going on in Williamsville, going towards UB, and the process in which they have come up with, meaning the different technical avenues that they didn't do for the 33. Compared to them expanding the Metro Rail out to UB. And number two, I want to say that the tree planting is advocating for our future, not because trees take time to grow and to mature. And so this is something that we're investing in for our children and their children and generations to come. So I'm going to hang up and listen. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I mean, okay. So a lot of folks in our group are also like advocates of just expanding light rail, period. I think it's ridiculous that we consider ourselves we are a major city. We're the second largest city in New York State, and you can't get from the airport to downtown on public transit. It's ridiculous. But I mean, like, the no metro people, like, let's just be real. It's racism. They just don't want brown people to be able to get to the suburbs easily. Let's call it what it is. But also, I mean, like, the public input and the public outreach that's gone into the process of metro expansion differs greatly from what's happened with the DOT, in part because of the demographic they're dealing with. And this is, I do not speak for any organization. This is me talking. This is India. People know who they can steamroll. Folks know what communities they can come and build something on top of, and no one's going to put up too much of a fight. And they also know which communities are going to resist. So yeah, we've been seeing that process play out a lot differently. And I just want to shout out Nate Benson, who has been covering this issue in depth. But I mean, even the disparity in media coverage in this project, as opposed to what we saw in the initial phase of the DOT's project before Eastside Parkways, had this amount of influence over what's been the narrative and the story that's been being told in the media, was crickets. We barely saw any news coverage. There was no public engagement. And even though I live outside of the project area, I still live in the neighborhood. I self-invited myself to the meetings. I wasn't on the list. I wasn't invited. In fact, I was disinvited. I was forwarded emails that were told to not send me the email. So this time around, I'm hoping that we're going to have a much more transparent and inclusive process. And I would implore anyone who's listening, or anyone who's listening, to implore your friends and your family, especially if you live in the area or not. This impacts everybody who lives in Western New York. Go to eastsideparkwayscoalition.com. The form is super easy. It's a downloadable PDF. Fill in your information, send it off to the DOT. They've already confirmed that they've been getting requests and they will be addressed. Make sure that you have at least an invitation. If you never come to a meeting, make sure that you are at least invited, so that when the issue that resonates with you comes up, you are able to be in that room and at that table to be able to be in an influential position. We're not in the position to make decisions yet, but at least you're able to express what it is that you feel, need, and desire. Yes,
I just
Ms.
want to say
Grant.
too, in the meeting this morning at Bidwell Parkway, I just was standing in the middle of the park where the trees were. I looked to my right and my left, and I saw houses and people on their porches. And I imagine the sight they sit when they get up in the morning and look outside and they got trees and they have people and they're part of that whole environment. And then I think about Humboldt Parkway and I think about the concrete, the expressway, the people Humboldt Parkway have to look at when they look outside their doors. We are relegating future generations. We're denied, and not just the people who are there now living on Humboldt Parkway trees. We're denied generation after generation after generation that they never have those trees in front of their houses.
Picking up on what you just said about getting involved in the critical time is to get involved early, because there's a thing called the scoping phase, which is at the beginning of the EIS process, environmental impact statement process. And in the scoping phase, that's where the project objectives are set. And what we need to do is set the project objective to prioritizing the health of the community rather than maintaining vehicular capacity when we know we already have the 190 and we have the city, historic city streets that can bring people downtown. We don't need that 33. We do need to prioritize the health of the community, and that means getting involved soon, like right at the beginning.
And soon as now.
Soon as now.
Soon as now. So head to the website and make your request to be a stakeholder. That means that you will be notified of any meetings that are happening. And also follow our socials. You know, I think that the one thing that I love the most about Eastside Parkways Coalition is that there's so much to learn. There's so much information. There's always knowledge being shared about things that I probably would have never even known, not only just about the process, right, about what an environmental impact statement is and what it means for this project, but the history of Humboldt Parkway, the history of Buffalo, the grandeur of the Olmsted Parkway system, and what a jewel and what a gem we have in the city of Buffalo that deserves to be restored and preserved. And I get excited every time I think about the work that's been put in to get us to this point, but also the work that is to come, and being able to sit at the table with the stakeholders and with the Department of Transportation and present a vision of a Buffalo that we want to see coming into the future, like the caller said, for our children, right? If the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and the second best time is today, my baby's going into his junior year of high school. And when he graduates college, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if he went to like UB or something. But, you know, I want him to go out and experience the world and see how people do things in other places. But God willing, Buffalo will be a place that he wants to come back to. I love my city. I love my town, and I love my people, and I just know that we can do better, but we got to demand it.
That's what we started doing in the fall of 2023. You know, no longer asking DOT, hey, pretty please, could we have a clean environment? We changed that language to demand. We demand a healthful environment, and we've been successful doing that. We should do a shout out to CRT because Citizens for Regional Transit. We have some intel. Maybe we could bring it to next week's show. In the EIS process out for the NFTA extension, there's been 3 phases of public comments on the EIS, and the NFTA changes their project. They respond and change their project to each one. So maybe that's something we can talk about next week, India.
That's great. So thank you so much, listeners, for listening in. We'll be back here again next week from 11:30 to 12:30. You can give us a call at 837-1112. Put it in your phone so you can call me next week. Thank you, Darren, for being here. And again, you've been listening to the Eastside Parkways Coalition Radio Hour with Indy Walton, Brad Wells, Miss Betty Jean Grant, and Darren Cotton. Thank you so much. Until next week, take a walk and enjoy the parkways.